My name is Willow, I am 24 years old and I live in Austin, Texas. The fork paused halfway to my mouth. The dining room was warm, smelling of roast beef and pine needles, but suddenly the air felt ice cold. My grandfather, the only person at this table who had ever really loved me, set his drink down. He smiled at me, a genuine, warm smile. "Sweetheart," he said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "How do you like the house I bought you?" The clatter of silverware stopped instantly. Total silence froze the room. I looked at him, blinking. I felt a knot in my stomach, the kind you get when you think you forgot to do something important. But I hadn't done anything. I glanced at my mother across the table. Her face was pale. The stem of her wine glass was trembling in her hand. A drop of red wine spilled onto the white tablecloth like a drop of blood. I looked back at Grandpa. My voice was steady, though my heart pounded. "What house?" I asked. Every head turned toward my parents. Panic bloomed on my father's face. In that split second, the confusion left me. I realized something clearly. I wasn't the one in trouble. They were. And I was finally going to watch them pay for it. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment, where are you watching from? To understand why that question at the dinner table was so explosive, you have to understand who I was in my family. Or rather, who I wasn't. My name is Willow. I am 24 years old. I grew up in a large, beautiful house in Austin, Texas. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family. We had a green lawn, 2 expensive cars in the driveway, and a pool in the backyard. My father, Richard, was a charming man who worked in sales. My mother, Linda, was beautiful and loved to host parties. And then there were my siblings. My older brother, Tyler, was the athlete. He was the star quarterback in high school. Every Friday night, the entire family dressed in his team colors. My parents screamed his name from the stands. If he won, we went out for steak. If he lost, the house was quiet and mournful for days. My younger sister, Jessica, was the beauty queen. She did pageants and dance. Her trophies lined the mantelpiece in the living room. My mother spent hours curling Jessica's hair and buying her expensive dresses. And then there was me. I was the middle child. I wasn't loud. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't a beauty queen. I was just Willow. I liked to read. I liked to paint. I was quiet. In a house where the loudest person got the attention, I became invisible. I learned very early on that my needs were secondary. If I needed new shoes, I had to ask 5 times. If Tyler needed new cleats, they were bought the same day. If I had a parent-teacher conference, my parents often forgot or had a conflict with Jessica's dance recital. I remember my 16th birthday clearly. It is a day that sticks in my mind like a thorn. For Tyler's 16th birthday, my parents threw a massive barbecue. They invited 50 people. They bought him a used truck. It was a huge celebration. For my 16th birthday, I came downstairs in the morning, expecting a happy birthday. My mother was in the kitchen, drinking coffee and looking at her phone. "Morning," she said, not looking up. "Good morning," I said. I stood there for a moment waiting. "Don't forget to take the trash out before you go to school," she said. My heart sank. They had forgotten. I went to school and didn't say anything. I thought maybe they were planning a surprise for dinner. I walked home that afternoon, hoping to see balloons or a cake. When I walked in, the house was empty. There was a note on the counter. "Willow took Jessica to dance practice. Dad is at Tyler's game. There is leftover pasta in the fridge." "Mom." I ate cold pasta alone at the kitchen table on my 16th birthday. I didn't cry. I just felt a cold hardness settling in my chest. I realized then that I was on my own. I stopped asking for things. I stopped expecting things. I became self-sufficient. I got a job as soon as I could. I bought my own clothes. I packed my own lunches. But there was one person who saw me. My grandfather, Arthur. He was my mother's father, but he was nothing like her. He was a stern man who had made his money in construction. He valued hard work and honesty. He didn't care about beauty pageants or football scores. He cared about character. Every Sunday, we went to Grandpa's house for lunch. It was the only time all week I felt like a real person. While my parents bragged about Tyler's touchdowns or Jessica's trophies, Grandpa would look at me. "Willow," he would say, "tell me what you're reading." And he would actually listen. He looked me in the eye, he asked questions. He made me feel like my thoughts mattered. One afternoon when I was 18, I was sitting on his porch helping him sort through some old tools. "You're the smart one, Willow," he told me. I looked up, surprised. "I'm not the smart one, Grandpa. Tyler got into a big university. Jessica is popular. Grandpa shook his head. That's noise. You have common sense. You have grit. You don't need applause to do the right thing. That makes you strong. He leaned in close. I worry about your parents, he said. They spend money they don't have. They live for the show. But you live for what's real. I'm going to make sure you're taken care of, Willow. I promise you that. I didn't know what he meant at the time. I just thought he meant he would always be there for me. I went to college, paid for mostly by student loans and scholarships I earned myself. I moved out of the house and rarely went back. The dynamic never changed. My parents called me only when they needed something, usually a free dog sitter or someone to help clean before a party. I accepted it. I thought this was just how life was. Some people are golden, and some people are invisible. I was content being invisible because I had my independence. But I didn't know that my invisibility made me a target. I didn't know that because I was the quiet one, my parents thought I was the stupid one. They thought I wouldn't notice. It started with small things. Things so small that if you weren't paying attention, you would miss them. But I had spent my whole life watching from the sidelines. I was good at noticing things. I was 24 years old. I was working as a graphic designer and living in a small apartment about 20 minutes away from my parents' house. I was saving every penny I could, hoping to buy a small condo one day. One Tuesday, I stopped by my parents' house to pick up a box of old winter coats I had left in the attic. I let myself in with my key. The house was quiet. My dad's car was in the driveway, which was strange for a Tuesday morning. He usually was at the office. I walked into the kitchen. My dad was standing by the trash can. He was holding a stack of mail. He looked up startled when I walked in. Willow, he said. His voice was too loud. I didn't hear you come in. I just came for my coats, I said. Why aren't you at work? Took a personal day, he said quickly. He shoved the mail he was holding deep into the trash can. Not on top, he pushed it down under the coffee grounds and eggshells. Okay, I said slowly. I'll just go up to the attic. I'll get it for you, he said. He rushed past me, blocking my path to the hallway. You sit down, I'll go up. It was weird. My dad never volunteered to climb the attic stairs, but I sat down. While he was upstairs, I looked at the mail on the counter. It was the usual stuff. Bills, catalogs, but then I looked at the trash can. My curiosity got the best of me. I walked over and peeked inside. I saw the corner of a white envelope sticking out from under a banana peel. It had my name on it, Miss Willow Bennett. I reached in and pulled it out. It was dirty, but I could read the return address. It was from an insurance company. Title Insurance, it said. Why was I getting mail about title insurance at my parents' house? I didn't own a home. I rented. I heard my dad's heavy footsteps coming down the stairs. I quickly shoved the envelope into my purse. When he came into the kitchen with the box of coats, he was sweating. Here you go, he said, smiling a fake smile. Don't stay too long, your mother and I have a lunch reservation. Dad, I said, trying to sound casual. Did I get any mail here recently? I'm waiting on a new credit card. He froze just for a second. No, he said, just junk mail, I threw it all out. Okay, I said. Thanks. I walked out to my car, my heart beating a little faster, just junk mail. But the envelope in my purse didn't look like junk mail. When I got home, I opened it. It wasn't a policy. It was a notice of change of address confirmation. It said that the correspondence regarding the property had been successfully updated to my parents' P.O. box. The property? What property? I stared at the paper. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was spam. But the feeling in my gut said otherwise. A week later, I was at a family birthday dinner for my brother, Tyler. Everyone was there. Grandpa was at the head of the table. I was sitting next to my mom. Her phone was sitting on the table between us. It lit up with a notification. I glanced at it. Bank alert. Deposit of $12,000 received. My mom snatched the phone up so fast she almost knocked over her water glass. Good news? I asked. She laughed, a high, nervous sound. Just a work bonus for your father. Finally came through. But I looked at my father. He was talking to Tyler, looking tired and worn out. He had told me a month ago that sales were down and he was worried about layoffs. Now suddenly there was a bonus. Later that evening, I was helping clear the table. I walked into the hallway and heard my parents whispering in the laundry room. We have to pay the credit card off first, my mom hissed. No, we need to pay the loan shark back, my dad whispered back. If we don't, we're in deep trouble. It's fine, Mom said. We have the money now. He won't know. She might know, Dad said. She doesn't know anything, Mom snapped. She's clueless, she never asks questions. I stopped breathing. Were they talking about me? I backed away quietly and went into the bathroom. I locked the door and looked at myself in the mirror. She's clueless. She never asks questions. They were banking on my silence. They were counting on the fact that I was the good daughter who never caused drama. I remembered the envelope. I remembered the weird behavior. I remembered Grandpa promising me he would take care of me. A cold thought entered my mind, a thought so terrible I didn't want to believe it. Grandpa was old. He had started giving away some of his assets to save on taxes. He had bought Tyler a car. He had paid for Jessica's wedding. Had he given me something I didn't know about? And if he had, where was it? I needed proof. I wasn't going to confront them without ammunition. If I asked them, they would lie. They would gaslight me. They would tell me I was crazy, just like they always did when I expressed my feelings. I needed to get into my father's home office. My dad had a heavy oak desk in his office. He kept the top drawer locked. He always said it was for client privacy. But I knew he kept the family documents in there. Birth certificates, passports, deeds. I waited for the perfect opportunity. 2 days later, my parents posted on Facebook that they were driving to Dallas for the weekend to visit friends. I knew the garage code. I knew the alarm code. I drove over on Saturday morning. The house felt empty and hollow. I walked straight to the office. The door was open, but the desk drawer was locked. I didn't panic. I knew my father. He was a creature of habit. He hid keys in predictable places. I checked under the lamp. No, I checked in the pencil cup. No, I checked the top shelf of the bookshelf inside a fake book that looked like a dictionary. There it was, a small silver key. My hands were shaking as I walked back to the desk. I felt like a criminal in my own childhood home, but I remembered my mother's voice. She's clueless. I wasn't clueless anymore. I inserted the key. The lock clicked. I slid the drawer open. It was messy, papers everywhere, unpaid bills, threatening letters from credit card companies. My parents were broke. I realized that immediately. They were drowning in debt. I dug deeper past the bills. At the very back of the drawer under a checkbook was a thick blue folder. It had a sticky note on it in my dad's handwriting. Do not touch. I opened it. The first document was a warranty deed. Grantor, Arthur J. Miller, my grandfather. Grantee Willow Marie Bennett. I gasped. The air left my lungs. Grandpa had bought a house for me. I read the date. He had transferred the deed 3 years ago. It was a small house in a nice neighborhood in Austin, a rental property. It was fully paid off. Grandpa had bought it cash. He must have meant for the rental income to help me or for me to have a place to live when I was ready. I flipped the page. There was another document. A general warranty deed with vendor's lien. Grantor, Willow Marie Bennett. Grantee, name of a stranger. It was a sale document. The house, my house, had been sold 6 months ago. I stared at the signature at the bottom. Willow Marie Bennett. It looked like my name, but the W was too loopy. The T's were crossed too high. It was a forgery. I felt sick, physically sick. My stomach churned. My parents had taken the deed Grandpa gave me. They had hidden it from me. And then, when they needed money, they forged my signature and sold the house. I looked at the settlement statement. Net proceeds to seller, $345,000. $345,000. That was life-changing money. That was my future. That was the security Grandpa wanted me to have, and they had stolen it. I looked further in the file. I found bank transfer records. The money hadn't gone into an account in my name. It had gone into a joint account my parents controlled, an old account from when I was a minor that I thought was closed. They had funneled the money out and spent it. I saw receipts. They paid off their credit cards. They paid for Tyler's wedding. They bought the new car sitting in the driveway. They were driving my house. They were wearing my house. I sat in my father's leather chair and stared at the wall. I didn't cry. The sadness was gone. It was replaced by a cold, white-hot rage. They stole from me, their own daughter, the one they ignored, the one they neglected. They didn't just overlook me. They actively preyed on me. They thought so little of me that they believed I would never find out. They thought I was too stupid, too passive, too nice to ever look in this drawer. I took out my phone. I didn't take the folder. If I took it, they would know I was onto them. They would have time to come up with a lie or hide the money that was left. Instead, I took photos. I took high-resolution photos of every single page. The deed, the forgery, the bank transfers. The dates, I photographed the fake notary stamp. I photographed the junk mail envelope I had saved. I put everything back exactly how I found it. I locked the drawer. I put the key back in the fake book. I walked out of the house. As I drove away, I looked at the house in the rearview mirror. It didn't look like home anymore. It looked like a crime scene. I drove home in silence. I didn't turn on the radio. My mind was racing, but it wasn't chaotic. It was focused. I sat at my kitchen table and printed out all the photos. I made a timeline. 3 years ago, Grandpa gifts me the house. 2 years ago, parents intercept the mail and hide the deed. 6 months ago, parents forge my signature and sell the house. Last week, parents receive the final payout and pay off their debts. I stared at the timeline. It was a felony, fraud, forgery, grand theft. If I went to the police, my parents would go to jail. I hesitated. Did I want to send my parents to prison? Then I remembered the cold pasta on my 16th birthday. I remembered the hushed whispers in the laundry room. She's clueless. They didn't care about me. They only cared about themselves. But I needed to be sure. I needed to be absolutely bulletproof. I called Grandpa's accountant, Mr. Henderson. I had met him a few times with Grandpa. He was a nice man. Mr. Henderson, I said when he answered, this is Willow Bennett, Arthur's granddaughter. Willow, he sounded delighted. How are you? I'm fine, I said. I have a question. Did he ever transfer a property to me? There was a pause on the line. Yes, of course, Mr. Henderson said. The rental on Oak Street. We transferred that years ago. Your father said he was handling the management of it for you until you got settled. Has he not been sending you the rent checks? My hand gripped the phone tight. No, I said calmly, he hasn't. That's odd, Mr. Henderson said. The house was sold recently, wasn't it? I assumed you wanted to cash out. Mr. Henderson, I said, I didn't sell the house. I didn't even know I owned it. Silence, long, heavy silence. Willow, his voice was serious now, you need to come to my office. Bring whatever you have. I went to his office the next day. I showed him the photos of the forged documents. Mr. Henderson looked at the papers, his face turning red. This is a sloppy forgery, he muttered. But it was enough to fool the title company if they had a corrupt notary. He looked up at me. Do you want to tell your grandfather? Not yet, I said. Christmas is in 3 days. Everyone will be there. You want to do it then? He asked. Yes, I said. I want them to look him in the eye when the truth comes out. Mr. Henderson nodded. I will prepare the official records. I'll have the original deed from our files. I'll have the proof that the money never went to you. I will have everything ready. Thank you, I said. I left his office and went to work. I acted normal. My mom called me that night. Willow, she said, sounding cheerful, just checking if you're bringing the green bean casserole for Christmas dinner. Yes, Mom, I said. My voice was steady. I'll be there. Great, make sure you're on time. We want everything to be perfect. Oh, don't worry, I said. It's going to be unforgettable. She didn't hear the edge in my voice. She just hung up. I spent the next 2 days preparing. I wasn't scared anymore. I felt powerful. For the first time in my life, I held the cards. They thought I was the weak one. They thought I was the victim, but victims cry, victims beg. I wasn't doing either. I was sharpening my knife. I went to visit Grandpa 2 nights before Christmas. I sat him down in his study. Grandpa, I said, I need to show you something, and I need you to promise not to explode until I say so. I laid it all out. The photos. The forgery, the theft. I watched his face change. He went from confusion to shock and then to a dark, terrifying anger. His hands shook, not from age but from rage. They stole from you, he whispered. My daughter. She stole from her own child. Yes, I said. I will call the police right now, he said, reaching for the phone. I put my hand on his. No, I said. Not yet. I want to do it at dinner. I want everyone to see who they really are. They've spent their whole lives pretending to be perfect. I want to take the mask off. Grandpa looked at me. He saw the steel in my eyes. He nodded slowly. Okay, Willow, he said. We do it your way. So we made a plan, a script, and now here we are, Christmas dinner. The roast beef is on the table. The wine is poured. My parents are smiling, thinking they got away with the perfect crime. And Grandpa just asked the question. Sweetheart, how do you like the house I bought you? The trap is sprung. The 48 hours before Christmas dinner were the longest of my life. Time seemed to slow down. Every minute felt like an hour. I was walking around with a secret that was going to destroy my family, and the weight of it was heavy. After I left Grandpa's house that night, we had a plan. But a plan is just an idea until you execute it. I had to go back to my apartment and wait. I sat on my couch in the dark. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a text from my mother. Mom, make sure you wear something nice on Christmas. Tyler's girlfriend is coming and her parents are wealthy. We need to make a good impression. I stared at the screen. A good impression. That was all she cared about. Appearances. She wanted me to look the part of the happy, successful daughter so she could play the part of the perfect mother. She had no idea that I knew she was a thief. She had no idea that the wealth she wanted to show off was stolen from me. I didn't reply. I couldn't. If I typed anything, my rage would bleed through. I spent the next day organizing the evidence. Grandpa's accountant, Mr. Henderson, had sent over the certified copies of the original deed. I had my photos of the forged documents printed on high-quality paper. I put everything into a plain manila folder. I didn't want a flashy binder. I didn't want a briefcase. I wanted it to look simple, just a folder. The morning of Christmas Eve, I woke up feeling sick. My stomach was in knots. It wasn't fear exactly. It was adrenaline. It was the feeling you get before you jump off a high-diving board. You know you have to jump, but your body wants to pull back. I drove to the mall. I needed an outfit. My mother wanted me to look nice. I decided I would look better than nice. I would look like an adult. I would look like someone who couldn't be pushed around. I bought a black dress. It was simple, sharp, and fitted. It didn't have frills or lace. It looked serious. I bought black heels. I pulled my hair back into a tight bun. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the invisible middle child anymore. I saw a woman who was done being a victim. Christmas Day arrived. The sky was gray and overcast. It looked like it was going to snow, but it was just cold rain. I drove to my parents' house. The driveway was already full. Tyler's truck was there. Jessica's convertible was there. And right in the center, my parents' new luxury SUV shone in the rain. I stared at that car. I knew how they paid for it now. They paid for it with my house. Every time they drove it, they were driving my inheritance. I parked on the street. I grabbed the manila folder and my purse. I took a deep breath. You can do this, I whispered to myself. Just stick to the script. I walked to the front door. I didn't knock. I used my key. The house was warm and smelled amazing. Cinnamon, roasting meat, expensive candles. Christmas music was playing softly. Laughter drifted from the living room. I walked in. My mother came into the hallway, holding a tray of appetizers. She looked perfect. Her hair was done, her makeup was flawless. She was wearing a red silk dress. Willow, she said, smiling. You made it, and look at you. You look very severe. Is that a new dress? It's new, I said. My voice was calm. Well, come in, come in. Grandpa is already here. He's in the den. I walked past her. I didn't hug her. I couldn't bear to touch her. I went straight to the den. Grandpa was sitting in his favorite armchair near the fire. He was holding a glass of whiskey. He looked older today, tired, but when he saw me, his eyes sharpened. He looked at the folder in my hand. He gave a tiny nod. I went over and kissed his cheek. Ready? He whispered, so low no one else could hear. Ready? I whispered back. They have no idea, he said. Your father is in the kitchen bragging about his investments. It makes me sick. Let him brag, I said. It will make the fall harder. We went into the living room. My siblings were there. Tyler was on the sofa with his girlfriend, laughing loudly at something. He waved at me. Hey, Will. Grab a drink. Jessica was showing off her new engagement ring to an aunt. It's 2 carats, she was squealing. I stood by the wall. I watched them. I felt like a ghost. For years, I had stood by walls at parties, wishing I could be part of the circle. Wishing I could be as loved as Tyler or as admired as Jessica. But today, standing by the wall felt different. I wasn't hiding. I was waiting. I was the hunter in the blind. My father walked in. He was wearing a cashmere sweater. He looked successful. He looked happy. Willow, he boomed. Merry Christmas, did you bring the green beans? They're in the kitchen, I lied. I hadn't brought anything. I didn't care. Good girl, he said. He patted my shoulder. I flinched. His touch felt like a burn. He didn't notice. He walked past me to pour himself a drink. Everyone, my mother called out. Dinner is served. Please take your seats. We moved to the dining room. The table was set beautifully. Crystal glasses, silver candlesticks, fine china. It was a scene from a magazine. I sat on the left side of the table. Grandpa sat at the head. My parents sat opposite me. Tyler and Jessica filled in the rest. The wine was poured. The soup was served. My father stood up to make a toast. He held up his glass. To family, he said. To another wonderful year of blessings. We are so lucky to have all of you here. We are proud of our children. We are thankful for this home. I watched him. He didn't stutter. He didn't blink. He toasted to family and blessings while he had a felony hidden in his desk drawer. The hypocrisy was so thick I could almost taste it. To family, everyone chorused. I raised my glass but didn't drink. We started eating. The conversation was the usual. Tyler talked about his job. Jessica talked about her wedding planning. My mother talked about the neighbors. No one asked me anything. I ate a small piece of potato. I waited. Grandpa cleared his throat. It was a loud, deliberate sound. The table went quiet. Grandpa was the patriarch. When he wanted to speak, people listened. He looked around the table. He looked at Tyler. He looked at Jessica. He looked at my parents. Finally, he looked at me. He gave me the signal. A slight narrowing of his eyes. I reached under my chair and pulled up the manila folder. I placed it on the table next to my plate. My mother frowned at the folder. Willow, honey, what is that? Not on the table, please. I didn't move it. Grandpa smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a judge about to deliver a sentence. Richard, Grandpa said to my father. Linda. Yes, Dad, my mother asked. I have been thinking, Grandpa said slowly, about generosity. Generosity is a virtue, my dad said, nodding seriously. It is, Grandpa agreed. I have tried to be generous with all my grandchildren. I bought Tyler his first car. I paid for Jessica's wedding. We appreciate it, Grandpa, Tyler said, raising his glass. And, Grandpa continued, his voice getting harder, I bought Willow a house. The room went deadly silent. My mother froze. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. My father's face went gray. All the color drained out of it instantly. I'm sorry, Tyler said, confused. You bought Willow a house, when? Grandpa didn't look at Tyler. He kept his eyes locked on my parents. 3 years ago, Grandpa said, I bought a house on Oak Street. Cash. I put it in Willow's name. It was supposed to be her security, her future. He turned to me. So, sweetheart, he asked, his voice ringing like a bell in the silent room. How do you like the house I bought you? The silence that followed his question was heavy. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My mother's hand started to shake. The wine in her glass rippled. She set it down quickly, crying out as it clinked hard against the table. My father looked like he was going to vomit. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I looked at Grandpa, then I looked at my parents. What house? I asked clearly. I knew the answer, of course, but I had to play the part. I had to make them say it. The house on Oak Street, Grandpa repeated. I sent the deed to this house. Richard, you told me you gave it to her. All eyes turned to my father. He wiped sweat from his forehead. He stammered. I must have forgotten. Forgotten? Grandpa asked. His voice was rising now. You forgot to give your daughter a house. It's complicated, my mother interrupted. Her voice was high and shrill. Dad, this isn't the time, it's Christmas. This is exactly the time, I said. I opened the manila folder. The sound of the paper sliding was loud in the quiet room. I pulled out the first photo. I slid it across the table toward Tyler. What is this? Tyler asked. He picked it up. It's a deed, Willow Bennett. Signed 3 years ago. And this, I said, sliding the next photo, is a transfer of sale. Jessica picked that one up. Sold, she read. Willow sold the house 6 months ago, she looked at me. I didn't know you sold a house, Willow. Why are you still renting that apartment if you have $300,000? I don't have $300,000, I said. And I didn't sell the house. But your signature is right here, Jessica said, pointing to the paper. Look closer, I said. Jessica squinted. It looks weird. It's a forgery, Grandpa roared. He slammed his hand on the table. The silverware jumped. Richard, Linda, Grandpa pointed a shaking finger at them. Explain yourselves, my father stood up. Now hold on, Arthur, you're making a scene. A scene, Grandpa laughed. It was a bitter, angry sound. You stole a house, you stole from your own child. We didn't steal it, my mother cried. Tears started streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. We borrowed it, we were going to pay it back. Borrowed? I asked. I stood up too. I felt tall, I felt strong. You didn't ask me, you forged my name, that's not borrowing, that's fraud. We were in debt, my dad shouted. We were going to lose this house, we were going to lose everything. We had to do something. So you robbed me? I asked. Why not ask Tyler? Why not ask Jessica? Why was I the sacrifice? My mother looked at me, her eyes pleading. Willow, please, you don't use the money anyway, you live simply. You don't need much, we needed it, we have expenses. Your father's business was struggling, we just needed to get back on our feet. The words hit me like a physical slap. You live simply, you don't need much. I live simply because I have to, I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. I live simply because you never helped me, you ignored me, and because I was quiet, you thought I didn't matter. You thought I was a resource you could harvest. It was a temporary loan, Dad insisted. I kept a record, I was going to pay you back with interest. Show me the record, I said. Show me the plan. He froze, he didn't have a plan. You spent it, I said. I saw the bank records. You bought this car, you paid for Tyler's wedding, you went on vacation. I looked at Tyler. He looked sick. He looked down at his expensive watch, realizing it might have been paid for with my money. You used my house to pay for everyone else's happiness, I said. We are a family, Mom screamed. Families help each other. Families don't commit felonies against each other, Grandpa said. His voice was deadly calm now. He reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Mom asked, panic rising in her voice. I am calling my lawyer, Grandpa said, and then I am calling the district attorney. Dad, no. Mom threw herself at him, grabbing his arm. You can't, we'll go to jail. You can't send your own daughter to jail. Grandpa pulled his arm away. He looked at her with total disgust. You didn't act like a daughter, he said, and you certainly didn't act like a mother. You are a thief. He dialed the number. He put the phone to his ear. Hello, Edward, it's Arthur. Yes, it's an emergency. I need you to file fraud charges. Yes, against Richard and Linda Bennett, tonight. My father collapsed into his chair. He put his head in his hands. My mother was sobbing loudly, hysterical wails that filled the room. Tyler and Jessica sat in stunned silence. They looked at me, then at our parents. Their world was crumbling. The perfect image of our family was shattering like glass. I stood there, watching them. I didn't feel sorry for them. I felt a strange sense of relief. The truth was finally out. The poison was being drained from the wound. Get out, Grandpa said to them, hanging up the phone. What? Dad looked up. Get out of my sight, Grandpa said. I don't want to look at you. This is our house, Dad said weakly. Not for long, Grandpa said. I'm freezing your accounts. And since you used stolen money to pay the mortgage, the lawyers will have a field day with this asset. Now get out. We haven't finished dinner, Mom wailed, completely detached from reality. Dinner is over, I said. I picked up my folder. I picked up my purse. I'm leaving, I said. Grandpa, are you coming? I certainly am, he said. He stood up, steadying himself on the table. I'm not staying under this roof another minute. We walked toward the door. Behind us, the sound of my mother's crying and my father's shouting filled the air. Tyler was yelling at Dad now. Is it true? Did you pay for my wedding with stolen money? The chaos was erupting. The detonation was complete. I opened the front door and stepped out into the cold rain. It felt cleansing. I took a deep breath. Grandpa stepped out beside me. He put his hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Willow, he said. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you sooner. You protected me today, I said. We walked to our cars. The Christmas lights on the house twinkled merrily, a stark contrast to the destruction happening inside. The weeks following Christmas were a blur of legal meetings and phone calls. The downfall of my parents was not quiet. It was loud, messy, and public. Grandpa didn't bluff. He followed through on everything. First, the police investigation. I had to give a formal statement. I sat in a sterile room at the police station and handed over my evidence. The detective was kind but direct. This is a significant amount of money, he said. It's a first-degree felony. My parents were arrested 3 days after Christmas. It made the local news. Local socialites arrested for defrauding daughter. The embarrassment destroyed them almost as much as the legal trouble. They lived for their reputation. Now, everyone in their country club, everyone at their church, everyone in their neighborhood knew what they were. They weren't the perfect family. They were frauds. My father lost his job. His company didn't want to be associated with someone accused of grand theft and forgery. My mother was shunned by her friends. The lunch dates stopped. The party invitations stopped. She called me from jail, begging me to drop the charges. Willow, please, she cried into the phone. I can't survive in here, I'm your mother. I held the phone, listening to her beg. You should have thought about that when you signed my name, I said. You didn't act like a mother then, you acted like a criminal. I'll pay you back, she promised. I'll sell my jewelry. It's too late, I said. It's out of my hands. The state is pressing charges. I hung up. I blocked her number from the jail. Then came the financial ruin. Grandpa's lawyers were ruthless. They froze the remaining assets my parents had. They proved that the money used to pay down the mortgage on their big house came from the sale of my property. The court ordered the house to be sold to pay me back as restitution. I remember the day. The "for sale" sign went up in the yard. I drove by slowly. The grass was overgrown. The curtains were drawn. The house looked tired and defeated just like them. My siblings reacted in different ways. Tyler was angry. He felt betrayed too. He realized that his comfortable life had been subsidized by theft. He came to my apartment one evening. "I didn't know, Will," he said. He looked ashamed. "I swear I didn't know." "I believe you," I said. "But you didn't notice either. You were happy to take the money and not ask where it came from." He nodded, looking at the floor. "I know, I'm sorry, I'm going to pay you back for the wedding costs. It might take me a few years, but I'll do it." "Thank you," I said. I respected him for that. He was trying to make it right. Jessica was different. She was angry at me. She sent me nasty texts. "You ruined the family. You're selfish. Why couldn't you just let it go? Mom is depressed because of you." I didn't reply, I just blocked her. She was just like them. She thought appearances were more important than truth. She thought I existed to be used. The legal process dragged on for months. My parents eventually took a plea deal to avoid a long prison sentence. They pleaded guilty to fraud. They were sentenced to 5 years of probation and ordered to pay full restitution. If they missed a payment, they would go to prison. They also had to do community service. But the real punishment was their life. They lost the house. They moved into a small, rundown apartment on the bad side of town. They had one old car. They had no friends. They had no status. I saw my father once, months later at a grocery store. He was stocking shelves. He looked old and gray. He saw me and turned away quickly, hiding his face. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel glee. I just felt a heavy, finalized sense of justice. They had tried to bury me, but they forgot I was a seed. I grew, and they withered. They had spent their whole lives building a monument to themselves. And with one question, one truth, I had knocked it all down. When the restitution check finally came, it was a strange feeling. I was sitting in Grandpa's kitchen. It was summer now. The windows were open and the breeze was warm. Mr. Henderson handed me the check. It was for the full amount plus interest. It came from the sale of my parents' house and the liquidation of their assets. "Here you go, Willow," he said. "It's finally yours." I held the piece of paper. It was just paper, but it represented my freedom. "Thank you," I said. Grandpa put his hand on mine. "What are you going to do with it?" I looked at him. "I'm going to buy a house," I said. "A real house. One that nobody can take away from me, and I'm going to start my own design studio. I'm quitting my job." Grandpa smiled. "Good, that sounds like a plan." I did exactly that. I bought a beautiful cottage on the edge of town. It wasn't a mansion. It was cozy. It had a big garden where I could plant flowers. It had a room with great light for my painting and design work. I moved in on a Tuesday. I unpacked my boxes. I hung my clothes in the closet. That first night I sat on my back porch. It was quiet. No shouting. No drama. No feeling of being overlooked or unwanted. I had my own space. My own name on the deed, a real deed this time. I thought about my parents. I wondered what they were doing in their small apartment. I wondered if they blamed me. I knew they probably did. People like them never take responsibility. They probably told themselves that I was the villain, the ungrateful daughter who destroyed them. But it didn't matter what they thought. Their opinion of me no longer controlled my reality. I had cut the cord. I was no longer the quiet one. I was the strong one. I was the one who survived. My relationship with Grandpa became even stronger. I visited him every Sunday. We didn't talk about my parents much. We talked about books, art, and the future. One Sunday he looked at me and said, "You know, Willow, I always knew you had fire in you. I just didn't know how big the fire was until Christmas." I laughed. "I surprised myself, Grandpa." "You handled it with dignity," he said. "You didn't scream, you didn't throw things, you just told the truth. That is true power." I realized he was right. I hadn't used violence. I hadn't used cruelty. I had used the truth. The truth is a mirror. I held it up to my parents, and they couldn't stand what they saw. I felt a deep sense of peace settle over me. The anger I had carried for months was gone. It had burned itself out. I forgave them. Not for them, I would never tell them that. I forgave them for me. I refused to carry the bitterness anymore. Bitterness is a heavy suitcase, and I was tired of dragging it around. I put it down. I walked away lighter. It has been 2 years since that Christmas dinner. My life is unrecognizable now. My design business is thriving. I have clients all over the city. I have new friends, people who like me for who I am, not for what I can do for them. I am dating a kind man named David. He is a teacher. He listens when I talk. He remembers my birthday. It feels strange, sometimes, to be treated with such care, but I am getting used to it. My parents are still serving their probation. I hear about them occasionally from a distant aunt. They are miserable. They blame the world for their misfortune. They still haven't apologized. I don't expect them to. Tyler has slowly rebuilt a relationship with me. We go for coffee once a month. He is learning to live without his parents' financial support. It's hard for him, but he's growing up. Jessica is still distant. She married her fiancé, but it was a small wedding. No one paid for a lavish reception. She is still angry that the fairy tale was interrupted. I don't mind. I don't need everyone to like me. I realized that for a long time, I defined myself by how my family treated me. I was the neglected one. I was the victim. But I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a survivor. Sometimes people ask me if I regret doing it. They ask if I regret blowing up my family. Don't you miss having parents? A friend asked me once. I thought about it. I thought about the cold pasta on my birthday. I thought about the junk mail lies. I thought about the theft. I didn't have parents, I told her. I had people who held me hostage. I don't regret it, not for a second. Revenge is a tricky word. It sounds violent. It sounds angry. But my revenge wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was the revenge of success. It was the revenge of happiness. Every morning, I wake up in my own house. I drink coffee in my sunny kitchen. I look out at my garden. I pay my own bills. I make my own choices. That is my revenge. I am free. I often think about that moment at the dinner table. The silence. The question, how do you like the house I bought you? It was the question that ended my old life and started my new one. Justice isn't always a gavel banging in a courtroom. Sometimes, justice is just standing up straight. Sometimes, justice is looking the liar in the eye and saying, I know. Justice isn't a fist, it's a mirror. And on that Christmas day, they finally saw themselves. And when I look in the mirror now, I see exactly who I am. I am Willow, and I am whole.